This week on the Downsized News, the GLP-1 world hit a turning point. One company is making more than $100 million a day from weight loss drugs. Another just lost tens of billions in market value. Telehealth companies are testing the limits of regulation, and the FDA is stepping in. We're breaking down who's winning, who's falling behind, and what all of it means for your access, your safety, and your wallet. If you use GLP-1s or you're thinking about starting, this is an episode you don't want to miss. So stay with us.
Welcome back to the Downsized News. Today is Monday, February 9th, 2026. Thanks for watching. We're here every Monday to bring you the latest news from the GLP-1 world. My name is Laraine Durham, and I've been taking GLP-1s for over 2 years now. I've lost 50 pounds and maintained my weight loss with my once-weekly shot of tirzepatide.
And I'm Christopher Durham. I've lost 100 pounds using GLP-1s. Every week we break down the stories shaping obesity care, from Zepbound, Mounjaro, Wegovy, and Ozempic to what's coming next.
Before we begin, we would like to thank the sponsor of the Downsized News, the Hume Body Pod. The Hume Body Pod is an at-home body composition scanner that shows far more than just your weight. In about 60 seconds, it tracks muscle, body fat, visceral fat, metabolic age, and more. This helps you see real progress in other areas of your body besides just your weight. The Body Pod is accurate. We personally found our Body Pod results to be within 1% of our DEXA scan results. Use our code DOWNSIZED for exclusive savings on your purchase of a Hume Body Pod. You'll find our link and code in the description. Thank you to Hume and the Body Pod for supporting the Downsized.
If this content helps you on your GLP-1 adventure, hit like and subscribe. We'd love to have you here. You can also share this video with a friend who might be thinking about starting a GLP-1 medication.
Please keep in mind we're not doctors and this is not medical advice. If you're interested in these prescription medications for the treatment of obesity, please consult your healthcare professional.
Each week we see new questions, new research, and new developments in obesity care, and we're here to make sense of it with you. And story number one, last week was a big week in the GLP-1 world and the obesity drug market, as quarterly earnings from major pharmaceutical companies revealed just how much money, momentum, and competitive pressure are now concentrated in weight loss medicines, and how quickly leadership in the space is changing. Financial reports from Eli Lilly and Company, Novo Nordisk, Pfizer Inc., and Amgen Inc. showed that GLP-1 drugs are no longer just a fast-growing category. They are now one of the most important financial engines in modern pharmaceutical history. Taken together, the results pointed to a clear winner, a former leader under pressure, and two major companies still trying to break into a market now measured in tens of billions of dollars. Eli Lilly delivered the strongest report of the week and reinforced its position as the dominant force in obesity treatment. For the fourth quarter of 2025, Lilly reported more than $10 billion in total revenue, beating Wall Street expectations. A large share of that growth came from its GLP-1 drugs, Mounjaro and Zepbound. Combined, sales of these two medications reached roughly $11 to $12 billion in just 3 months. That works out to nearly $4 billion per month and more than $130 million per day from two products. Lilly also raised its outlook for 2026, projecting total annual revenue in the $80 to $85 billion range. Executives pointed to expanding manufacturing capacity, improving supply, and sustained demand. Investors welcomed the guidance, sending shares higher. Analysts said the results confirmed that Lilly has moved from challenger to industry benchmark. The company's dominance brings more consistent supply, expanding product options, but it also gives Lilly significant leverage in pricing and negotiations. Right now, Lilly is setting the pace for the entire industry.
In story number two, Novo Nordisk's earnings told a more complicated story. The company remains one of the largest players in the GLP-1 market, and its sales figures remain massive. In 2025, Wegovy and Ozempic together generated well over $30 billion in revenue. In the fourth quarter alone, combined sales of the two drugs were estimated in the high teens of billions of dollars, approaching $17 to $18 billion, depending on region and reporting method. Ozempic continues to dominate global diabetes markets, while Wegovy remains one of the most widely prescribed obesity treatments in the United States and Europe. On a pure sales basis, Novo is still producing numbers that would be considered historic in almost any other drug category. But investors were not focused on the past, they were focused on the outlook. Novo warned that in 2026 it expects slower growth and lower operating profit, citing pricing pressure from insurers and governments, rising rebates, and intensifying competition from Eli Lilly. The market reaction was swift. Shares fell by double digits within days, wiping out an estimated $40 to $50 billion in market value. The setback comes as Novo adjusts under new leadership. Its new chief executive is now tasked with stabilizing growth, rebuilding investor confidence, and finding a way to counter Lilly's accelerating momentum. Novo remains highly profitable and globally influential. But after years of being viewed as untouchable, the company is now operating in a defensive posture, focused on protecting market share and proving it can still lead. In simple terms, Novo is in retreat and trying to regain its footing.
So that's the two big guys. Up next, the other two reporting this week. Story number 3, Pfizer reported quarterly revenue of about $14 billion and slightly exceeded earning expectations. Still, its results were overshadowed by uncertainty surrounding its obesity strategy. Unlike Lilly and Novo, Pfizer does not yet have an approved blockbuster weight loss drug. When demand for GLP-1 medications exploded, the company was largely unprepared. Since then, Pfizer has been trying to buy and build its way back into the market. It has spent billions acquiring companies and developing metabolic and obesity programs. Its pipeline includes injectable and oral GLP-1 candidates designed to compete on convenience and dosing. During its earnings call, Pfizer highlighted early and mid-stage trial data showing meaningful weight loss in some patients. However, those studies also showed relatively high rates of nausea, vomiting, and other gastrointestinal side effects. Analysts remain cautious about whether Pfizer's candidates can compete with established leaders. Executives acknowledge that meaningful revenue from obesity treatments is still likely several years away. For now, Pfizer remains financially strong but strategically behind, working to rebuild after missing the first wave of GLP-1 development.
In story number 4, Amgen reported more than $8 billion in quarterly revenue and beat expectations, giving it the financial strength to pursue obesity ambitions. Unlike Pfizer's broader approach, Amgen is concentrating heavily on one experimental drug called MariTide. MariTide combines GLP-1 activity with a long-acting mechanism that could allow for less frequent dosing. In mid-stage trials, some patients lost more than 20% of their body weight, putting the drug in the same performance range as today's leading therapies. Zepbound. Those results have drawn strong investor interest. At the same time, the drug has shown notable side effects, including nausea and injection site reactions. Amgen is now running large phase 3 trials to determine whether those issues can be managed at scale. Company executives have said obesity and metabolic disease are central to Amgen's long-term growth strategy. If MariTide succeeds, it could become a multi-billion-dollar product. If it fails, Amgen's entry into the market could be delayed for years. Amgen is taking a high-risk, high-reward approach. Last week's earnings highlighted the extraordinary scale of the GLP-1 market. Lilly is now on pace for more than $80 billion in annual revenue. Novo continues to generate tens of billions from Wegovy and Ozempic, even as growth slows. Pfizer and Amgen are each spending billions to try to catch up. Industry analysts say the sector is entering a new phase in which pricing, reimbursement, and competition will matter as much as scientific innovation. As more companies enter the field, insurers and governments are pushing harder for discounts and tighter coverage. Those pressures are already reshaping company forecasts.
For patients using GLP-1 drugs to treat obesity, these financial results have direct consequences. Strong earnings give companies leverage with insurers and pharmacy benefit managers. Slowing growth often leads firms to focus on protecting margins. That can affect pricing, prior authorization rules, access to higher doses, and patient assistance programs. While increased competition could eventually drive down costs, most patients today remain dependent on a small number of companies for access and affordability, too. Last week's earnings season marked a turning point in the GLP-1 market. Lilly has emerged as the clear leader. Novo is working to regain its footing under new leadership. Pfizer is rebuilding after missing the first wave, and Amgen is betting heavily on the future. And this was just the overview. Stay tuned because later this week we'll be doing deep dives into each of these 4 companies, their sales, their pipelines, their innovation, and everything that matters to those of us fighting the disease of obesity. We'll break down what they're really working on, where the risks are, where the opportunities are, and what it all means for access, affordability, and long-term treatment. These decisions will shape obesity care for years to come. Last week was a big week because it confirmed a major shift in power. Lilly's winning at historic scale. Novo's in retreat and trying to recover. Pfizer's still chasing. Amgen is taking a big swing. And the next 12 to 24 months will determine whether this remains a 2-company race or becomes a broader, more competitive market for patients around the world. Broader, more competitive. So you start with the 2 big guys, the duopoly.
Yeah, Novo was really in the lead for years with Ozempic, and then here comes Eli Lilly with Mounjaro and just kind of overtakes Novo's position as number 1. So now Lilly is kind of king of the mountain right now. Novo Nordisk is trying to regroup and try harder, and and they just had the pill form of Wegovy come out. So I would think that means their stock would shoot up, but no, their earnings, they say, are not going to meet expectations, and so that's driving their stock prices down.
The 2 different stories. Lilly is like, we're going to make a lot more money. Novo's like, oh, I don't know, what are we going to do?
Yeah, Lilly's driving the bus for sure, and Novo's trying to catch up.
Well, and for those of you out there and the analysts are terrible about it, all analysts do in this story is look at what the weight loss percentages are and assume that whichever has the highest is going to be the winner.
Mm-hmm.
The reality for most patients is that's not necessarily what's going to happen.
Well,
it's going to be about what I have access to, what I can afford.
It's insurance coverage, it's affordability, it's all of these things. The Wegovy pill starting at $149 a month, still expensive, but it's not the $4.99 price tag of a Zepbound pen. So,
and the notion that retatrutide is going to come in and kill everything is absurd.
Well, I mean,
it's just absurd. Is it going to be the most weight loss? Absolutely. Does everybody need to drive a Corvette? No. A lot of people can be perfectly happy with a Hyundai.
It'll just, more competition, better pricing, more access for more people. That's what we want. The story is still unfolding, and it continues to evolve with new developments breaking today. What began last week as a low-cost marketing move by a major telehealth company has now escalated into a major regulatory and legal battle that could reshape how compounded GLP-1 medications are sold in the United States. Pay attention, I'm listening. Last week, telehealth company Hims & Hers announced it would begin offering a compounded oral semaglutide weight loss pill for about $49 a month, positioning it as a lower-cost alternative to Novo Nordisk's FDA-approved Wegovy pill, which lists for roughly $149. But unlike Wegovy, the Hims product had not been reviewed or approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Instead, the Hims pill was a compounded medication mixed by a pharmacy. Almost immediately, Novo Nordisk responded, calling the Hims product unapproved, inauthentic, and untested knockoff, end quote, and warning that Novo would pursue legal action to protect its patents and the integrity of the drug approval system. Novo said that mass-marketed compounded versions of semaglutide raised serious safety and regulatory concerns. Soon after, federal regulators stepped in. In a formal statement, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration announced a broad enforcement effort aimed directly at this type of product. The agency said, quote, "Today, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration is announcing its intent to take decisive steps to restrict GLP-1 active pharmaceutical ingredients intended for use in non-FDA-approved compounded drugs that are being mass-marketed by companies including Hims & Hers and other compounding pharmacies, as similar alternatives to FDA-approved drugs. These actions are aimed to safeguard consumers from drugs for which the FDA cannot verify quality, safety, or efficacy. We take seriously any potential violations of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act." End quote. The FDA also said it was targeting misleading advertising that had already triggered warning letters in late 2025. The agency wrote, quote, "In promotional materials, companies cannot claim that non-FDA approved compounded products are generic versions or the same as drugs approved by the FDA. They also cannot state compounded drugs use the same active ingredient as the FDA-approved drugs, or that compounded drugs are clinically proven to produce results for the patient." End quote. The FDA went on to warn that enforcement would be aggressive. The agency said, quote, "The FDA will use all available compliance and enforcement tools within its authorities to address unsubstantiated claims and associated public health concerns. Entities engaged in the manufacture, distribution, or marketing of unapproved compounded GLP-1 products should be aware that failure to adequately address any violations may result in legal action without further notice, including without limitation, seizure, and injunction." End quote. At the same time, the Department of Health and Human Services confirmed that federal officials had referred the situation to the Department of Justice for review of possible violations of federal law. That escalation, combined with the FDA's unusually strong language, sent a clear signal that regulators were prepared to take this issue much further. For many people using or considering GLP-1 medications, this announcement was unsettling. Online forums and patient communities quickly filled with concerns that a wider crackdown could limit access to compounded options that some patients rely on for affordability. While federal regulators emphasize that their focus is patient safety and truthful marketing, the tone of the statement made clear that the enforcement would not be light. Just 48 hours after launching the product, Hims & Hers reversed course. Hims & Hers announced that it would stop offering the compounded semaglutide pill following what the company called constructive conversations with regulators and industry stakeholders. Hims & Hers said that it remains committed to affordable care, but would discontinue this specific product. But the story didn't end there. Now, with additional developments breaking today, this episode has taken on even greater significance. Novo Nordisk confirmed that it has formally sued Hims & Hers, accusing the telehealth company of mass marketing unapproved copies of Novo's obesity pill and injections and infringing on Novo's active patents. Novo Nordisk is asking the court to permanently ban Hims & Hers from selling compounded versions of Novo's drugs that violate Novo's intellectual property rights. Novo is also seeking to recover financial damages. In other words, Novo Nordisk is not just asking regulators to intervene, Novo is asking the courts to permanently shut this business down. Here's some quotes from Novo Nordisk. "This is a complete sham, and it has been a sham since the shortage ended," end quote, said John Nuckelman, Novo Nordisk's Group General Counsel, in an interview. He also goes on to say, "The fact is that their medicines are untested and they're putting patients at risk," he added, referring to the lack of FDA verification for safety, quality, and effectiveness of compounded drugs. Hims & Hers responded forcefully. In a public statement, Hims & Hers called the lawsuit a, quote, "blatant attack by a Danish company on millions of Americans who rely on compounded medications for access to personalized care," end quote, and accused major pharmaceutical companies of, quote, "weaponizing the U.S. judicial system to limit consumer choice," end quote. Hims & Hers said that it has a, quote, "long history of providing safe access to personalized health care," end quote, and maintains that its products are legal because the dosages are customized. Financial markets reacted immediately. Shares of Novo Nordisk rose more than 3% following the announcement, while shares of Hims & Hers fell more than 27% in a single day. That sharp split shows that investors see this lawsuit as a serious threat to Hims & Hers' business model. The lawsuit also comes at a critical moment for Novo Nordisk. Novo Nordisk is working to reclaim market share in the booming obesity drug market while fending off competition from both Eli Lilly and a growing wave of compounded alternatives. Even so, Novo Nordisk estimates that as many as 1.5 million Americans are still using compounded GLP-1 drugs. That figure highlights just how widespread these alternatives have become. Hims & Hers have acknowledged that its products contain semaglutide, even though the ingredient remains protected by U.S. patents through 2032. Hims & Hers argues that its versions are legal because the dosage are, quote, personalized. Novo Nordisk strongly disputes that claim. Novo Nordisk says that it does not sell semaglutide to compounders and accuses Hims & Hers of engaging in illegal mass production under the guise of customization. Novo's lawyer said, "We want to end unlawful mass compounding," emphasizing that Novo Nordisk is not trying to eliminate all compounding, only large-scale commercial operations. He explained that legitimate compounding is meant to be done on a case-by-case basis when medically necessary, such as for patients who cannot swallow pills or are allergic to certain ingredients. What we are seeing instead, he said, is mass stock production that is being labeled as personalized medicine when it is really just a dosage variation. For patients, this distinction is critical. If Novo Nordisk succeeds in court, the ruling could permanently block many low-cost compounded GLP-1 products from the market, regardless of demand. Taken together, the FDA's enforcement warnings, the Department of Justice referral, and now this sweeping patent lawsuit show that this is no longer an isolated incident. This is becoming a legal and regulatory test for how obesity medicines will be priced, distributed, and controlled in the years ahead. For millions of Americans trying to treat the disease of obesity, the outcome of this fight will directly affect access, affordability, and long-term care options. And for telehealth companies and compounding pharmacies, it may determine whether this business model can survive at all. Does this look bad for compounding in general?
Hard to say.
Hard to say.
Does it look bad for Hims & Hers? Yes. I can't believe they launched a $49 product days after.
I mean, I've seen other telehealths launch similar price points of the compounded semaglutide pill.
Seems like a stretch to me.
Seems like a stretch. Seems like they're
We're not
pushing your luck.
lawyers. We're not lawyers.
No. I mean, compounding the injectable medications was one thing. There was a shortage. There's FDA rules about shortages. There's FDA rules about personalized dosing and personalized additives and medications. But to just take a pill and make it the exact same thing seems a little too close.
Certainly not personalizing it.
I don't know how they're calling that personalized.
I don't know either.
I mean, is the milligrams of semaglutide in it different? I guess it would have to be, but I don't really know.
But either way, that's a big machine pumping out pills. That's not.
Yeah, it's the mass production that's the problem. It's not a one compounding pharmacist mixing up a personalized dose for one customer. It's being produced in mass.
Story number 7. Before we get into the next story, a quick note. We do cover politics here, but only where policies directly affect patients. We're not interested in personalities or talking points. We care about what actually changes access, pricing, and real-world affordability. That is the lens we use for every story. And one more thing, please be kind in the comments. We are all here to support each other. We are here to fight the disease of obesity, not to fight each other. Let's keep this space respectful, honest, and helpful. In other words, if you say mean things, call anybody names, I will delete your comment. So, on to the story. When the Trump administration launched TrumpRx.gov, it promoted the site as a major new way for Americans to access lower prices on prescription drugs, including high-cost GLP-1 medications. In its rollout, the White House highlighted large price cuts for drugs like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Zepbound. But even at launch, none of those GLP-1 prices were new. Every discounted GLP-1 price shown on TrumpRx when the site went live had already been available for months through manufacturer direct purchase programs and earlier discount initiatives tied to most favored nation pricing discussions. Those reductions began rolling out in late 2025 after pressure on drug makers to bring U.S. cash prices closer to international levels. So TrumpRx did not introduce new GLP-1 savings. It launched by displaying prices that drug companies had already put in place. TrumpRx itself does not sell medication. It is not a pharmacy. It does not process prescriptions. Instead, it functions as a price information platform powered by data from GoodRx, showing estimated cash prices at participating pharmacies and manufacturing partners. When patients use those prices, they are paying fully out of pocket. The costs do not go through insurance. They do not count towards deductibles, and they do not count towards out-of-pocket maximums. For GLP-1 users, that distinction matters. Many patients who had already enrolled in manufacturer programs before TrumpRx launched were already paying the same amounts now being promoted on the site. What TrumpRx mainly did at launch was centralize that existing information and place it under a government-branded platform. That can improve visibility and make discounts easier to find. But it did not represent a new round of price cuts for Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, or Mounjaro. It also did not change insurance rules, prior authorization requirements, supply limits, or long-term pricing strategies that continue to affect access to these drugs. For those of us using GLP-1s, the practical takeaway is very straightforward. If you already had access to manufacturer discounts, Lilly Direct, NovoCare, what have you, before TrumpRx launched, the site did not lower your price. If you were unaware of those programs, TrumpRx may help you discover them. For patients, what matters most is understanding that GLP-1 prices highlighted at launch were negotiated and implemented months earlier. They did not suddenly appear with TrumpRx. And knowing that context helps people make smarter decisions about how they pay for the medications they depend on.
So TrumpRx is powered by GoodRx?
It's the back end of it, yeah.
So it's just an informational site.
Yeah.
They don't process prescriptions, they don't take orders, they don't have doctors, they're just a website with information and pricing.
Right.
Which if you're totally new to the GLP-1
Yeah.
world and you're not familiar, it's all in one place and you don't have to go searching across a bunch of different manufacturers' websites. So that could be helpful, but they did not negotiate all new lower prices.
No.
The prices are the same.
Prices
as what
did not
we've
go down.
had for the past couple months.
Right, really since November.
Yeah. And story number 8, for people living with diabetes who have already experienced serious limb complications, new research suggests that medication choice may make a life-changing difference. A new study published in JAMA Network Open finds that patients treated with GLP-1 medications had significantly lower risks of repeat amputations, heart problems, kidney failure, and death compared with patients taking older diabetes drugs. Doctors have long known that once someone with diabetes experiences a major limb event, such as a severe ulcer or an amputation, their long-term health risks rise sharply. These patients face much higher chances of future amputations, heart disease, and kidney failure. But until now, there has been limited evidence showing which treatments best protect people in this high-risk group. Researchers addressed that gap by analyzing nationwide health data from Taiwan spanning more than a decade. They studied more than 17,000 patients with diabetes who had already experienced major limb complications. Some patients were treated with GLP-1 medications. Most were treated with another common class of drugs called DPP-4 inhibitors. The researchers then tracked what happened to these patients over time. The results were striking. Patients taking GLP-1 medications had about a 10% lower risk of repeat limb events and a 14% lower risk of amputations. They also had a 38% lower risk of major heart problems and a 43% lower risk of cardiovascular death. Overall mortality was 37% lower. The risk of needing long-term dialysis was nearly 40% lower. In other words, these medications were linked to better outcomes across limb health, heart health, kidney function, and survival. The study suggests that GLP-1s may offer far more than blood sugar control, especially for patients already dealing with advanced complications. For people who have lost part of a limb or suffered severe circulation problems, these drugs may help reduce the risk of even worse outcomes in the future. The authors say the consistent benefits across multiple organ systems support using GLP-1 medications as a preferred option for secondary prevention. That means protecting patients who have already been through serious complications, not just trying to prevent the first one. This was a retrospective study, meaning it analyzed existing data rather than assigning treatments in a clinical trial. so it can't prove cause and effect. But the size of the study and the consistency of the findings make it an important piece of evidence for doctors and patients to consider. For people living with diabetes, especially those who have already faced amputations or serious limb damage, this research reinforces something we talk about often. Medication choices matter. Access matters. And long-term outcomes depend on more than just today's blood sugar reading. This is about protecting quality of life, independence, and survival.
I mean, so those are big numbers. I mean,
yeah, like 40%. You definitely want a GLP-1 if you've had these diabetes and amputation issues. You would definitely want to be on a GLP-1 according to those retrospective numbers. I'm no doctor, but I'd sure sign up for it.
I think you're absolutely right. Story number 9, new real-world data is adding to growing evidence that GLP-1 medications work best when they're combined with consistent behavioral support and habit building. A new report from Noom analyzed outcomes from 14,203 members enrolled in its GLP-1 RX program between December 2024 and February 2025. All participants logged their weight and activity during the study period. Researchers followed participants for 40 weeks and compared outcomes based on how actively users engaged with Noom's behavioral tools, including tracking, educational content, and daily coaching features. The results showed clear differences. Members in the highest engagement group lost 25.2% more weight on average than those in the lowest engagement group. Highly engaged participants also remained on their medication programs 2.2 times longer than those who were less engaged. That matters because medication persistence is one of the strongest predictors of long-term success on GLP-1 therapy. The analysis also found that more engaged users were more likely to maintain regular dosing schedules and fewer interruptions in treatment. Noom CEO Jeff Cook said the data shows that medication and behavioral support reinforce one another and that sustained engagement is closely tied to better outcomes. The findings are consistent with similar results reported by other digital health providers, including Ro and Omada Health, which have published data showing improved weight loss and adherence when GLP-1 therapy is paired with structured coaching and behavioral programs. Across these programs, patients who regularly track behaviors, engage with educational tools, and receive ongoing support tend to lose more weight and stay on treatment longer than those who rely on medication alone. Researchers and clinicians say this reflects how GLP-1 medications work in real life. The drugs help regulate appetite, blood sugar, and hunger signals, but they do not automatically create routines, improve food choices, manage stress, or establish consistent patterns of behavior. Those changes come from the patient. Because of that, experts increasingly view GLP-1 therapy as most effective when it is combined with systems that support accountability, education, and daily engagement. It's also important to note that Noom's analysis was observational. It did not randomly assign participants to different engagement levels, which means it cannot prove that engagement alone causes better results. However, the large sample size and consistent pattern strengthen the evidence that behavior and adherence play a major role in outcomes. For people using GLP-1s, the practical takeaway is clear. The medication changes the biology, but habits determine how well that change translates into lasting results. Patients who stay engaged, monitor their behavior, and build structure around their treatment are more likely to maintain progress over time. As more long-term data emerges, researchers say the focus on obesity treatment is shifting from medication alone to integrated care models that combine pharmacology with behavioral support. And this latest report adds immeasurable evidence to that approach. So, I don't know. I'm thinking if we could also say if they watch The Downsized.
I was going to say community is important. Like and subscribe to The Downsized because we're here every single day. Just come to The Downsized every day, watch our videos because highly engaged GLP-1 users have been shown to lose, 25% more weight.
But I don't think that's a surprise.
I don't think that's a surprise. And all joking aside, community is important. If you don't have people around you that are supporting you, it's hard. So, and that's why we're here, right? Because we want to support our viewers, people on a GLP-1 journey. So we do hope you will like and subscribe.
And the more actively you're working in your treatment, the more likely you are to continue your medication and to be successful.
Right. I mean, the medication does all the things, with appetite and hunger and all that, but you can still reach for the wrong foods. You can still choose to put the wrong foods into your mouth. And not that there's any wrong foods, but I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. So, better choices, more engagement, all the things are going to lead to a better outcome.
Those are today's stories, and they remind us just how quickly this space is changing and how important it is to stay informed together. You can always find support on our website, thedownsized.org. That's where you'll find our GLP-1 store, our email list, and all the details about the Downsized at Sea cruise.
We're hosting our second annual Downsized at Sea cruise, sailing June 4th through the 8th, 2026. Join us as we sail on Royal Caribbean's Freedom of the Seas. We will depart from the port of Miami and call on Nassau and Royal Caribbean's private island, Perfect Day at Coco Cay. We will have a daily program of events where we will have meet and greets, film shows, get together for dinner, and have plenty of opportunities to connect with other GLP-1 users and Downsized viewers. To learn more and connect with our travel advisors, Kelly and Roberta, go to thedownsized.org and click on the cruise tab. We would love to have you join us.
If today's episode helped you, please like this video and subscribe to The Downsized. And if you're ready to take that next step with us, we would truly love to welcome you into Club Downsized. That's our YouTube membership program. Just click on the join button below. And thank you for being here and for being a part of this community.
Before we move on, I want to invite you to something new that we're really excited about. We are launching our very first Downsized book club, and we're starting with the new book, Enough, by Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Anya Jastreboff. This book is all about understanding hunger, biology, mindset, and what it really takes to build a healthier relationship with food and with yourself. You can read the first 3 chapters on your own and then come join us live on Thursday night to talk about them. Even if you don't read the book, I hope that you will join us anyway, because this book has some really great information about the disease of obesity. I'll share what stood out to me, take your questions, and have an honest, practical conversation about how we can battle obesity. We are going to be live this Thursday night at 7 o'clock. And if you do not have your book yet, it is available in our Amazon store. You can use the link in the description of this video or go directly to thedownsized.org and click on the Amazon store tab. We are Amazon affiliates, so we do receive a small commission if you use our link. We thank you for supporting our channel at no extra cost to you. So get your copy of Enough by Oprah and Dr. Anya, read the first 3 chapters, and join us. We think it will be a really good conversation, and we would love to see you there.
Please join us Wednesday night for Downsized Live. It's where we answer questions and chat with our viewers in real time. Please share this video with a friend or family member that might be looking for information on GLP-1s. My name is Christopher Durham.
I'm Laraine Durham.
And we are The Downsized.